Thank you. Good afternoon. It is the first day of April, now in our 22nd year of continuous political talk. This is the John C. Scott Talk Show. Today, live in studio to lead off our show, U.S. Senator John McCain at 3:30. The Attorney General of Arizona, Terry Goddard. Then Jim Nintzel of the Weekly breaks down the Weekly. Representative John Kavanaugh, the Chair of Appropriations in the House of Representatives, also will be with us during our show. Arizona Senator John McCain has sent a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano calling for Napolitano to send National Guard troops to the southern border region between U.S. and Mexico. And, of course, the senator points out continued and apparent growing violence along the border. And, of course, noting the death of a well-known rancher recently that is a horrible tragedy. Senator, that was a shocking bit of news, but could be predicted. We've known of this terrible violence along our border. It's spilling over into Arizona, is it not?
It is, John. And a year ago we had a hearing up in Phoenix with the sheriffs and the police chiefs and other law enforcement agents. They said the violence was growing. I was in Mexico City. The violence is growing. The violence and the drug cartels that are a threat to the very government of Mexico. The murders have gone up, and it's a sad and terrible event, John, but it is also something that was predictable, not this particular event, but the violence spilling over from Mexico into the United States. As you know, 3 American citizens were murdered in Juarez just a couple of weeks ago. And this violence is at an
assistant
incredible
police
level.
chief in Nogales slain in Nogales just a few days ago.
Yep, and we also, by the way, at that time, a year ago, said that we needed to have the guard on the border. We asked Janet Napolitano to send them, and how vitally needed they are. And they need to be there, and they need to be armed.
You know, obviously you're in a very hard-fought campaign here for the nomination for the Republican Party to the U.S. Senate. I don't think it's much of a contest. Other people might think it is, but you've got Hayworth blasting you, saying your record on immigration's out of step with what Arizona wants.
Well, the fact is he also said that I just asked for the guard on the border. I asked for it a year ago. We had the hearing a year ago. We've had Napolitano before the Homeland Security Committee where this issue has been specifically discussed. I have fought for more UAVs on for surveillance and to use virtual as well as we need very much a physical fence, but we also need a virtual fence. We need to use some of the surveillance technology that we developed and used in Iraq so we can detect people and round them up and make sure our border is secure. Our first priority is to secure the borders, and that way the violence doesn't spill over, and then worry about anything else as far as immigration is concerned. But first, we have to secure the borders. That's been my position for a long time.
You've been to the Middle East many times. We've done 3 broadcasts from Israel. You take a look at their fencing along Gaza and also in the north along the Lebanon border. It is labor-intensive. You've got to have somebody responding to an alarm. But it can be done, Senator. I mean, everybody knows it can be done.
It can be done, and as you know, they have very sophisticated surveillance capability along with that physical fence. So it's a good example of what can be done. You get a good fence, but you also have technological, low manpower intensive. As you know, manpower is a big issue in Israel. And low manpower that are scanning all the time. And by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but up on the northern border, it's women, all Israeli army women, who man these surveillance areas where they're watching what's coming across on their radar screens.
People ask me all the time, how safe is Israel? But I said, well, on every street corner there's an 18-year-old girl with an M16. Seems pretty safe to me.
It's fascinating the way the Israelis have integrated women. It's fascinating the way the American military has integrated women in our military.
While we're on that subject of Israel, these relationships are as strained as they've ever been with this country. What do you think needs to be done here?
Well, first of all, the administration and the president have ham-fisted. They have, the gang that can't chew straight. First, they demand that there be a freeze on settlements in Jerusalem as a precondition, something the Palestinians had never required. And then they reverse themselves and say that, no, it's no longer a requirement. Well, the Palestinians still and the other Arab countries demand a freeze. Then Biden goes there and they get into this big fight. And the fact is, it's not about settlements. It's about existence. And that part of where those settlements are being built is in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. So it's not the Palestinian areas. So it's all about existence, and these Arab countries should recognize the existence of the State of Israel, and then maybe they could have more fruitful talks and negotiations.
There was, now that we're in that part of the world, just for a few moments, if you don't mind, it looks like the Chinese may help us on sanctions with Iran. Is that hopeful?
I wouldn't count on it.
Rhetoric,
how many times have you heard that? How many times have we given the Iranian? How many last chances have we given the Iranians to stop this construction of nuclear weapons? I just don't believe the Chinese are going to be helpful. I think there's a little rhetoric there, but look, we need to enact sanctions with our European friends immediately, and then hope for get something out of the UN. And by the way, one of the things we need to do is identify with pictures on Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and every place else of these brutal people who are killing and raping and brutalizing people in prison, and they're oppressors. Everybody should know them. Everybody should know who they are. They are the worst kind of brutes.
What would your take on the president's trip to Afghanistan? Any hope of any progress there?
I think we're progressing. I'm glad the president went. I think the troops are always glad when the commander-in-chief comes to see them. Karzai is being recalcitrant, and there's still a big problem with corruption. But militarily, I think we're doing very well. But we need to make sure our allies know that we are staying, and not announce time after time that we're leaving by the middle of 2011. It's going to take longer than that.
I understand votes aren't entirely tied to money, but you've done pretty well in fundraising, over $2.5 million in this last reporting period. I know that J.D. Hayworth fell short of his goal in what he was trying to get. He was trying to get it to $1 million and didn't get there at all. So,
well, I'm pleased at the support we've gotten, especially small donors all over Arizona and America. The internet is quite a interesting way to raise money, as you well know. But we've also gotten support across the state. Look, I'm enjoying this campaign. I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. I've been traveling around. Town hall meeting down in Sierra Vista last night, by the way, where people are very angry. They're very angry about this wanton murder, and they want action, and they deserve action.
What immediate action are they going to take? I don't think Napolitano is going to put some troops on there in the next week or so. What immediately can alleviate some of that anxiety and real fear and anger in Cochise County?
Well, I think, first of all, we should be moving the Border Patrol closer to the border. These people who have ranches and land right on the border, I mean, they're basically unprotected in many ways. We should get, and I've been working on it, to get more UAVs employed. We got to keep the pressure on Napolitano to send the Guard down on the border. We have to reverse their decision to reduce the Border Patrol, which is unbelievable. We're having a hearing week after next when I get back on the collapse of this virtual fence project. We still need a virtual fence, but we also ought to find out why so much of the taxpayers' money was wasted on the attempt to build a virtual fence. We got to do a lot of things, and also we need to cooperate as much as possible with Mexico because their government is under assault. As you know, this is a $65 billion a year business, and there's a lot of corruption that's been created by it, and we need to do what we can to try to help the Mexican government. This is a threat to the very existence of the Mexican government, these drug cartels.
Well, I mean, they're just so. Our relationship, of course, with Arizona and Sonora has always been so close. I mean, there are just thousands that cross the border on such a regular basis, not only for family but for commerce, and it has changed so dramatically in the 40-some years I've been here. I mean, people are frightened. They really, truly are, and I think they have a right to be.
Well, person after person at the town hall meeting in Sierra Vista last night told me about people crossing their property, people being at the bus stop when they take their kids to drop them off for school, illegals doing, I mean, it's people have the right to live in a secure environment, and they are not.
The administration's moved to offshore drilling. Something you talked about in your campaign. I thought, well, this is President McCain's latest announcement here.
Drill, baby, drill. It's really interesting. I would have had drilling off California. I would have had a lot more areas opened up. And some of these areas, as usual with this administration, there's less there than meets the eye. A number of these areas had already been pretty well scheduled, but look, it's better than what it used to be. But the environmental community, as you know, are going to be fired up, and let's see what Pelosi and Reid have to say about this.
Healthcare reform is just not going to be a repeal, is there?
Well, look, when you say repeal, I think that it's possible. But there also, as you well know, John, Congress has the power of the purse. We regain a majority in both houses next year. We can cut off the funding for some of these, the most egregious parts of the, quote, healthcare reform. We can just say no funds will be expended for X, okay? Well, no funds will be expended to hire 16,500 IRS agents as is contemplated in this legislation. No money will be spent to force American citizens to buy health insurance. So I think there's a lot we could do that short of repeal. But look, we repealed the catastrophic health bill back in '94, and we could do it again. This is the first time in history a majority of American people have opposed a major reform, and they're mad as heck about it.
What do your lawyers tell you about the constitutionality of this?
Well, there are a number of lawyers that say that nowhere in the Constitution does it say that the federal government can force you to buy a product, tell you the price and the kind of product it is, and fine you if you don't.
So, these attorneys general that are moving toward this have some kind of chance of getting this into a higher court?
I believe they do. Now, I read, particularly in the liberal media, they poo-poo it and say, no, this is a waste of time. I don't think so. It's not. I really don't believe it's the Constitution, the intention of our founding fathers to have this kind of intervention in the private sector and in Americans' lives.
You know, I noticed in 2008 you were pretty busy a little bit before that. Even in 2007, it seemed like you were preoccupied. But it's great to see you so many times here. It must be a great feeling to come back to the people of Arizona. They put you in the United States Senate here for 24 years. You were in Congress for how many terms? I forgot.
Two. 4 years.
4 years before that. It's good to touch these people and talk with them again. You know, don't you think? I mean, I think everybody understands where you were the last couple of years, but I watch you with so many people, and you know, it's just like the times when you first ran, your second time, and times we were in front of shopping centers in the back of pickups and such. But it's kind of nice. I know you don't enjoy these heated, terrible campaigns, but
no, I love it. I love the campaign. I love the town hall meetings. Last night in Sierra Vista, up in Prescott, we did a town hall meeting with the Tea Party people. I mean, it's wonderful to see Americans so aroused, and the people in Arizona. I'm telling you, I have never seen anything like the volatility out there and the frustration and the anger and the desire to really change America. And I think it's going to come true. And I got to say, these Tea Party folks, my hat's off to them. Everybody, the liberal media for months, they're no factor. Now they're scared to death of them, and they should be.
Well, they played a role here in our local politics.
Sure.
They were been involved in some of the decisions of the city council. I think that the awareness that these folks have, or all kinds of people have, is so heightened by these very difficult times. And you and I talked about this in Washington. We talked about it when you were here just recently. Arizona is in real trouble here. You know, we're sitting here with the potential that if voters turn down the sales tax, which I think they probably will, these cuts are going to be pretty severe to Arizona. And I'm not so sure Arizona's ever experienced these kinds of diminishing dollars for their government. And that's a real adjustment. Class size is higher, and DMV closed, and you get the parks that are going to be affected here, let alone these rest stops that are closed, and people are starting to notice.
Yes,
what's going on here?
Well, one of the interesting dichotomies and explains the frustration and anger is that at the same time, the state of Arizona is going through the worst times ever, as you just adequately described, and we in Washington increased domestic spending last year by 20%. Increased it. While the city of Tucson and everybody in the state and the legislators and the governors are having to make all these tough decisions, we just keep printing money out there. By the way, could I just mention on that
Sure.
1 second on the repeal thing?
Sure.
It's repeal and replace, okay? Repeal and replace. We want to take care of children who with pre-existing conditions. By the way, I'm not sure I want my kids to stay home till they're 26, but that's another issue. But
I think a couple have, haven't they? I'm not sure. I've kept track of all of them.
But the point is that we'll replace it with malpractice reform. We'll replace it with establishing risk pools that the governments, state and federal, put into so insurance companies would bid on ways to treat contracts to treat people with pre-existing conditions, go across state lines. There's a whole bunch of things that we could replace this legislation with, which would address the true problem of healthcare in America, and that's the cost. It's not the quality. And so our mantra is not only to try to repeal and if necessary cut off funding, as I told you about before, but replace it, because we know healthcare needs to be fixed, but we got to fix the cost and preserve the quality.
After this health care reform battle, we look now at possible dealing with immigration, banking reform, cap and trade, the environment and such, the drilling, all a part of, I guess, moving towards some. Do you see much happening before the elections of 2010?
Nothing happening on immigration reform. The Democrats are against the legal temporary worker program, among other things. And honestly, there's no support on the Republican side because we want the border secured first. First, you've got to secure the borders. I mean, I hate to sound so repetitious. On financial reform, I don't know. It's kind of a shame in a way after the financial collapse, near collapse of the world economy, that we still haven't done anything to really prevent a reoccurrence. And the Dodd bill, as I understand it, is just kind of a big government solution. Any solution we come up with has to have only one principle and be confined to one thing. No institution in America should ever again be too big to fail.
As the standard bearer for the Republican Party for president in 2008, and now all that's happened since that time, what is the state of the Republican Party? Is it under I guess, some kind of evolution here, some kind of transformation, do you think?
We're doing better. We've got a long way to go. We have some great voices emerging, ranging from Sarah Palin to Tim Pawlenty to Bobby Jindal to Mitt Romney to, I mean, there's a broad, Eric Cantor to Mitch McConnell's doing a great job. John Kyle is a national figure now. He's really done a tremendous job. So we've got a great bunch of people out there, and then we'll start after this next election in the process of selecting a nominee for 2012. But here's what Republicans have to do, John. We have to tell the American people we will not make the mistakes we made last time we were in power, and that is we let spending get out of control. We got into earmarking, pork barreling, Abramoff. Look, J.D. Hayworth used Abramoff's luxury suite 5 times. He was the number one contributory, Abramoff and his cronies, and that kind of thing we can't have anymore. We can't have the earmarking pork barrel spending that caused corruption in Washington, and we got to get spending under control. That way we can regain the American people's trust, and I'd say one of the first ways to begin it is to say that we will pass a constitutional amendment to the United States Constitution to balance the budget, a balanced budget amendment to start with. So we're forced to make the same decisions that we're having to make here in Arizona.
I know I won't have to twist your arm, but ask people to vote for you and why they should do that here.
I think that Arizona, as you and I just mentioned, is hurting worse than it has in any time in our history. I believe I can be effective and am effective for the people of Arizona. We need to create jobs. We need to encourage small businesses. We need payroll tax relief. We need depreciation allowances for small businesses. We need to get lines of credit. We need to keep people in their homes so that they can afford their mortgages. We need to bring this economy back and provide people with the kind of future that we'd hope they would have. On national security issues, when we're in the majority, I will be chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. We have huge military presence here, bases, the Goldwater Ranges, men and women who are serving, and tens of thousands, I've forgotten the exact number now, of workers at these bases that are dependent on these bases for their livelihood. I know I can protect this country and help the state of Arizona's economy by maintaining these bases and our military presence here.
Well, I have to remind people there's no one with a better military mind in America than you. You've been there all these years and traveled the entire world and followed this great military of ours. We are we are in terrible shape without you, Senator. I mean, I have to say that to everybody. I know these campaigns get down to petty, stupid, issues that just don't really relate to what's important here, and the security of this country seems to be and should be the highest priority of this government. And no one knows the world as you do, and no one knows the security issues and threats that face this country as you do. We just have to have you back in the United States Senate for a few more years.
And by the way, I meant to say I take nothing for granted. I love a campaign. I love a good scrap. An old saying that I used to have with Ted Kennedy, because he and I used to fight on the floor all the time. Fight not joined is a fight not enjoyed. And so it's a lot of fun, and I'm having really a great time. And it's so much needs to be done.
Senator, good to see you again. I hope you come by often. This
friend.
is a critical campaign for Arizona. It's a very important choice that they need to make for the next 6 years for the United States Senator. Thanks again. Good to see you.
Thanks again. Bye.
U.S. Senator John McCain of the John C. Scott Talk Show. Terry Goddard, Attorney General, candidate for governor next.